Hello and welcome to this episode of Own the Journey, where we are interviewing and talking to some of the best leaders in the world and bringing their wisdom to you so that you can learn from all of the things that they have to offer. And today we have a special guest, Logan Aguirre with 417 Magazine and Biz 417. We're super excited to have you here.
Thank you.
So for those in our audience who aren't familiar with 417 Land and what 417 Magazine does, tell us just a little bit about the organization, because you guys do so many things.
Well, 417 is our area code.
Yes.
That's where the name comes from.
Right.
And we've coined it 417 Land. To us, that just is our region, Southwest Missouri.
Right.
And we are a lifestyle publishing company. Our job is to tell all the great stories about why this is a great place to live, work, and play. So we do that through our home magazine, which is quarterly, our monthly 417 lifestyle magazine, and then 6 times a year Biz magazine. And then from that, we have digital platforms, e-newsletters, events that help bring that all to life and reach people in a lot of different ways.
Wow, that's amazing. And so you were going nonstop trying to keep up with all the different publications and the timelines. I just can't even imagine what it's like. Plus being a mom and a person in the chamber, recently the chairman of the board, yes. So there's always a lot going on for you. Mm-hmm. Well, thanks for sharing everything with us. So I first want to start, because a lot of the people that we are viewing and we want to share with are in family businesses, and it's a little bit challenging sometimes handling the transition from parents to the next generation of people taking over, which you did. Your parents were involved in the magazine originally, and you took over recently. So tell us a little bit about what that was like and what it was like for the employees. Was it tough for them? Was it tough for you to step in and all of a sudden you're the boss? Mm-hmm. Some of those kind of things. Well,
going back a little bit, my brother actually started, when my parents bought the magazine, my brother started with them. I was off working in other places.
Right.
So really, we were working on a transition plan where my brother and I were taking over the day-to-day operations while my parents did less and less and less of the day-to-day. And really, the most disruptive and hard for me was when he left the business.
Oh, wow.
And that was emotional because he and I ran it together. And so this was, I think he left about 6 years ago. But when you're running a business with someone that you trust that inherently,
yes.
And that you know that no matter what, they've got your back, and we would joke that we were one good person together, like between our strengths, like, hey, we make one really good leader.
Yeah.
And he left kind of abruptly. His wife's business, she traveled every week. She worked for a giant software company.
Wow.
Her company sold, and she had an opportunity to move into the corporate office in Kansas City. And it all happened really quickly. That was the harder transition for our team, mm-hmm. and for me and my parents, because it wasn't in the plan.
Right.
And then I was all of a sudden named president, and I felt really vulnerable and exposed, and the things that he was kind of the fun parent.
So you were the...
And so I was like, sorry, we lost the fun parent. Now you've got me. My job is not to be the fun parent. But then the next couple of years really just keep, working more and more and more for my parents to just continue to hand over more and more responsibility. So by the time it actually happened, it didn't feel really any different. Oh. And that was by design. We said we don't really want anyone internally to feel like anything has changed.
Yes.
And even the first year of me owning it, they still kind of popped around. They would come in, they would, they were more visible. Mm-hmm. And then slowly that faded out too. So now anybody new showing up, they don't know any different.
Right.
And really that transition had gone on so long that it was very much everyone knew
Very
that
natural.
that was going to happen.
So you didn't have to deal with any of those things where somebody didn't like the decision that you made and they went to one of your parents or tried to go. None of that. We've heard horror stories about those situations.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you've got an amazing team that really aligned
Luckily,
with you.
I think we had worked with People Centric Consulting Group, which is a local company,
yes.
And they had helped us for years on scaling the business, because it used to be very flat. Everybody went to them for everything.
Right.
We didn't have departments. I mean, it was very much a startup mentality for a lot of years.
Right.
Because when they bought it, they were rescuing it. It was about to go out of business. And it was very exciting and kind of that startup energy.
Right.
Eventually that was unsustainable. So we started working on developing departments and leaders within the company, and that happened over a really long period. Mm-hmm. So we didn't really have a lot of what you're describing. luckily.
Yeah, that's awesome. And now you have a strong leadership team in place, and you were just talking about how you told your team this morning you didn't want to be in process meetings. Like decision meetings, okay, but not the process. I mean, you're kind of the visionary for the brand and where it's going. I know that, so you kind of have to serve two customers. So the first one is like driving, subscribers so that you've got that engagement. And then from there, you're also, that's how you get advertising, which is a big part of the business itself. So how do you navigate through that? How do you get the subscribers, as many as you need, and obviously appeal to the advertisers so that those markets align?
Right. I feel like I have three audiences. And the first, number one, most important one is inside my building. And I know that you're a big believer in that too.
Absolutely.
So they're my first audience.
That's awesome.
And
I love that.
the second audience would be the subscribers. So making sure the content is what they want to see, and then the advertisers as well. For us, when it comes to subscribers, our magazine reaches a very specific demographic in our market, and that's not a very big number of people.
Right.
It's a very targeted number of people. We aren't looking to all of a sudden double the amount of people 417 goes to, because our unique selling proposition is that we are hitting the most affluent households.
I see. So you really know your target customer.
We know exactly where they live.
Yeah.
We might have their house on a map, like we will get that person. Yeah. So we're really just trying to penetrate within the 10 to 12,000 households that we know in our area are at this level.
That's
because
awesome.
How we go and sell to reliable Lexus is there's only so many people in town that can buy a Lexus, and we can deliver those people to you.
Very good.
If you're selling something more like a Toyota Camry, then yeah, absolutely, you might want to be on KY3 and blasting to the whole region.
Right.
So there's reasons to do all sorts of different mediums, but we hit this very specific target. And so we just want to penetrate within that target.
I love that. One of the things that we talk about very often is really understanding who your target customer is and getting really clear and knowing the things that they like, where they go to learn, where they go to expand their educational knowledge, all of those kind of things. So I love that you guys...
Yeah, we actually have her named. So our 417 reader is Beth. And so every decision we make about content is about Beth.
So we've named
her. Do we see Beth in the magazine? Is Beth seeing herself in the magazine? Is Beth going to go on that hike? Does Beth want to eat at that restaurant?
Yes.
And a great example is we were doing a camping cover story, and someone on our team pitched the idea that we should write about primitive camping. And a great way to not say, oh my God, there's no way we're writing about primitive camping, is to say, interesting. Do you think Beth wants to go primitive camping?
Yeah, and the answer is no.
No. It's interesting, always internally, our staff is way younger than our target audience. And so naming Beth has made a huge difference, because you have to take yourself out of it. And that's a lot of times in marketing. You're not necessarily marketing to you. You're marketing to somebody that maybe isn't anything like you.
Exactly.
And you have to create that lens of what is important to them, and even down to when we're doing photography, we have to find Beths. So sometimes there's emails going around the office. Does anyone have any Beths that would be free this Friday for this photo shoot? Or we need to take Beth on some hikes so we can photograph Beth actually on these hikes instead of maybe the photographer's friend who's 20 years old and
Wow, that is some gold. I think a lot of people can learn from that. So do you do the same thing with Biz 417 and Doug? Okay, so we've got Beth and Doug. And the bridal magazine?
Well, that's probably Ashley. Ashley is our digital reader, our digital audience, and so Ashley's probably our bride audience.
Okay.
We also have a secondary. Carol and John are just a little bit older than Beth, so their kids are out of the house. So Carol and John are our secondary audience,
nice.
And Elizabeth is our secondary audience for Biz.
Okay.
So Beth and Elizabeth.
Elizabeth's
just, has a bigger career probably.
Well, speaking of the different readers that you've got, I think, and you mentioned the digital subscriber, I think, in today's world it's so hard to get everybody's attention, to keep people's attention. How do you guys tackle that? What's the creative process, the writing process? What are you doing to keep people's attention so that you get the engagement when you're competing with Instagram and Facebook and everything else?
Well, one thing that we have going for us is we don't have to do news. And news is what is so fleeting and coming in on your watch and here and there and everywhere, and you can find it anywhere.
Yes.
What we get to do is really, really curated for our area. And we call it refrigerator journalism, meaning back in the day, it might be something you want to clip out and tack on your refrigerator.
Yes.
So the 5 best patios or 5 best dog-friendly trails, or people you want to know, the Biz 100 list, that kind of thing. Our stuff we think of as evergreen content and coffee table status, where people don't throw it away that easily because they might want to go back and try that restaurant or look at that best of list, refer back to it. So for our content is meant to slow down and enjoy. And you're not bombarded with a million other messages when it's happening. And it's hard to find these days.
Yes, it is.
But it's good to, we know our audience stops and engages with it.
Yeah. I love it. Well, I think that you mentioned it already, and I think that has something to do with your team. You talked about how amazing, your first audience is your team. Talent management is on the top of everybody's mind right now. It's so hard to retain the talent that you've got, and I know that you have to compete on a nationwide level because you build these great, capable people, and then others try to come in and steal them, and they can do that and then pay more than we can in 417 land sometimes. How are you guys tackling that?
Well,
fighting it.
Any tips would be great. We've always have hired pretty young, right out of school. Yeah. And then typically they're really trained up really, really well, and they get snatched, mostly to work for other companies within 417 land. Oh. What we have found is that our offboarding is more important than our onboarding in a lot of ways, because mostly they go and work for somebody in town, often in a marketing role. Often they're the next person we're trying to sell advertising to. And so we want to make sure they have a great experience when they're there, that their experience offboarding is really strong, and that they leave with a good feeling about the brand. And usually when they've been there, they believe in it because they've seen the power of it. And so that usually helps us out, because mostly a lot of them stay here in the market. Now during the pandemic, all of them left. Everybody who left during the pandemic left our area. Yes. And that was really hard. And some of them we keep on as freelancers, but often they're moving to an area that we can't compete pay-wise for what they need to make for where they want to live. They want to live in a big city. But a lot of times, if they're leaving to go to a bigger city, they're needing that bridge, and so we're able to keep them on and as a freelance writer or designer for us, and kind of help them as they're transitioning into their next role. That's awesome. And then we have people that write for us still that maybe haven't sat in our office in 10 years, but they're really talented at what they do, and there's certain things that we can still send to them.
I think there's really some strong wisdom in the offboarding well, because it doesn't even matter if they're going to be a future somebody that you're going to sell to or something like that. Oftentimes we found that in our world, sometimes people come back and they're like, I thought the grass was greener on the other side, but as it turns out, it's kind of like a desert over there. It's not so much fun. I want to come back. And so whether it's leaving well in the local relationships, or you want them bragging about the experience with your organization as well.
Yeah. I hope that they leave and feel good about it. While I'm always sad that they're leaving, I'm always excited for whatever they have in store and cheering for them, and know that they're going to do great, and it's fun to kind of watch and see where they go next.
So you kind of reconciled with the fact that you guys are a little bit of an incubator, that there's going to be people that come and people that go, and so you just have to plan accordingly. And
we're trying to move out of that mentality so much because it's very disruptive.
Oh, it has to be.
And so a lot of that comes into paying competitively and making sure that people see a path within the magazine. We're so small that it's not like, oh, I understand if I do this level, then this level. But a lot of times people's paths, sometimes we say your next job within the building probably doesn't even exist yet, because we love to create roles based on your skills and what we need at the time. So that takes a certain person that can kind of conceptually understand, and a lot of it is showing examples of Megan. Yes. Megan started as this and then went here, and she's bounced all around the building, and now she's in this leadership position. But I think the culture that we'd had for so long was definitely that startup incubator and now fly off. Yeah. And that is very unsustainable.
Right.
Especially right now when it's not as easy to get the talent. It used to be that there was a whole line of people that would love to work at 417,
Right.
and now everybody, we're all just competing for the same people. It's just not the same game.
It isn't.
So we're really having to shift into, okay, how do we become stickier?
Right. I love it. Well, we believe so much in culture, and I know we're very aligned, and people-centric has helped you guys a lot. Would you mind to just share, whether it's people-centric or another organization around the country, how important it is to bring in somebody to help you with culture management and different ways of thinking and get that outside view of what it means to make decisions or build a good culture?
Well, I think it's good for the team to see that you're bringing in somebody outside who doesn't have bias and doesn't have a different lens. It's so easy for me to read an exit interview and have all of my own opinions of whatever they said, And if you have somebody else look at all that and then come back to your team and say, guys, this is what we've seen, and these are the places that we want to help you guys, it just builds trust and credibility within the team. Okay, they're serious about this, and this is not through their lens. This is through all the different surveys. I mean, we're constantly gathering information from our team on how we're doing on how are we living up to our core values. So there's a point in the year when they evaluate us on that. They evaluate their own department on our core values.
That's awesome.
So that we kind of see where are we falling short, where do we need to improve. But then every couple of years it's good to have somebody else audit all that, which is what we're going through right now. People-Centric has audited all of our things, and we've had a big dynamic shift in just the generations within the building right now. And so the things that used to be really fun and exciting for certain generations in the building don't necessarily appeal to the newer generation. So how do we find things that we all take value in when it comes to that fun culture?
I love it. Okay, so shifting gears just a little bit, you talked about the pandemic, and we've been partners for a little while now. And you guys had to make kind of a big decision to make some investments in technology, make some shifts in technology around that. How does that affect the culture and what's happening, your ability to move home when you needed to? It's shifted a lot in the last few years.
We definitely had a really broken system. And it was costing so much time. Because things didn't work. And our team was losing hours and losing patients, and we probably lost people because of it. Just because of how maddening it was to try to get something done. We are a deadline-driven environment. We don't miss our deadlines. And when your stuff is spinning for hours on end, or you can't access the files you need, that was hard. Thank God we went on board with you guys when we did, because we were like all set up, and then everything shut down and we didn't miss a beat. Everybody went home. We never missed a deadline. Everything got designed, it got written, uploaded beautifully. And now we ended up then even eventually upgrading to a cloud-based phone system that you guys helped us with, because we realized this is the new normal. People want this fluidity in their day, in their week. And so we still have an office, and we do ask that people are there for anything that builds community or collaboration. So there's certain meetings or our huddles, that kind of thing. But otherwise, it's a fluid day, which means we need to be able to answer the phone no matter where we are. And we need to be able to work no matter where we are. If there's a giant snowstorm, and we're on deadline, which was last week, and people can't get out of their houses, we don't miss a beat. And that we wouldn't have been able to say that in 2019 before everything happened.
That's crazy. And you hit it. I mean, the culture, what we're seeing in today's world, I mean, you're not going to keep your top talent if you don't have the right infrastructure in place to create that flexibility and allow people to go home, allow them to do that. That's just kind of the new norm in today's world. Are you guys getting pushback from your team about having to come in for the culture-based things that you mentioned, coming in that settled? No, they're still enjoying that.
We rolled out new how we work guidelines. I don't like rules or policies. I absolutely hate that kind of stuff. So even to put guidelines down, I was like, as long as we can say guidelines. I just personally don't like feeling like these rigid rules. But our guidelines, when we rolled them out in May, when we brought people back into the office, they were really well received, because it was about, these are the things that are important for us we're a creative environment. And so there are things that we need to all be here for. But we understand, and I think what we asked is that at least half of your time is spent in the office, but that can be whenever you want. Maybe you want to work 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. and, you know, we don't really care. One of our core values is interdependent autonomy, meaning we hire great people and empower them to do their best work, but we're interdependent. So when you miss a deadline and you're causing me to stay late, we consider that selfish behavior and we don't tolerate it. So the fluidity of when you want to work and all that, but that these are the anchor times that we want to see you in here during the week. And then when you have those moments when everybody's there, it feels so good, and people really respond to that. Yeah. That it's been really well received.
That's so awesome. So when you look out in all the great things that you guys have going on, what's the future? Where are you taking this awesome environment that you guys are building? Where are you taking it down the road?
I'm taking it to 417 land. No. You know, that's a tough one for me. I don't have, I wish I could tell you I had this big like 5-10 year dream. I really don't. What I want is, I want our people to have a really high quality of life, and I want to provide a really great place for them to work, and I want to continue to put out awesome content, and I want to see what opens up for us with that. I really believe that we will kind of know when there's the right thing that we need to jump on or move into, but always protecting that, you know, we're not political, we're not controversial, we're not news. Being able to stay in that positive lane is really, really important. So how can that be expanded within our region? I'm not personally interested in being in any other markets. That's just not what I want for my life. I don't want to be trying to manage a magazine here or there. So I don't know what that looks like here, but we play the great game of business, and that's really important to me, to just continue to, as our labor prices go up, our paper prices go up, you know, continuing to figure out how to operate as efficiently and profitably as possible in this environment. I don't know what opportunities will come our way. I'm open to what that looks like.
Well, it's awesome, and you've been recognized nationwide for being one of the best local magazines. So I think it's awesome. What you're doing is working, and so it's good to see. So when we talk about some of the challenges associated with you stepping into your role, one of the questions that I can't help but ask is, your dad was kind of the face of the brand, you stepped in, and your brother left after that, and now you're the face of the brand. Have you dealt with some challenges just based on gender, based on you stepping in the role? Maybe you're, you know, well, I used to know Gary, and has that been tough for you?
I really have not had that
stuff?
No.
That's so awesome.
And I get asked that question about the gender, you know, and certain things, but that's not what, I don't know. One time at a magazine conference, I experienced like the, you know, your dad must be nice, like to have your dad hand you a company kind of thing, which I'd love to show you the loan. That is not what's happening. But otherwise, I've been really, really blessed. And my dad is he's like he's so empowers everyone. That we just have always had a lot of women at 417. And my whole leadership team is women. And he always just created such a great environment that never had he's always been a huge champion of me or anybody inside the building, so never had that vibe inside our building. And then luckily, through chamber and everything, I just have not really encountered no, if anything, more on the opposite end of just just great experiences.
Well, it says a lot about 417, I think.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean,
so there might be people like behind closed doors saying something, but they've been nice enough to not say it to my face, I guess.
That's awesome. Well, you mentioned the chamber, and that was certainly something that I wanted to ask you about, because you have always been very involved in the community and served on the chamber board and then assumed the role of the chair, and that's such a big time commitment. There's so much energy that you have to put into that. Tell us a little bit about, one, why it's so important, and then what it was like to go through that experience.
It's important to me because I feel like it aligns with what I'm passionate about at my job, which is making this a great place to live, work, and play, or telling the story of why. Getting to be involved in the community, you feel like you're getting to work upstream. Yeah. So that in 10 years, it's still like that. And so you're getting to be part of writing the story of how we're going to continue to make this place great. And, you get what you give. And so for me, I don't think we can authentically tell the story about this place if we're not all in on it. And that to me looks like, time outside the building, learning. Every time I'm at anything, I'm like, oh, that would be a good story idea. Oh, they'd be great for Think Summit. I mean, I'm just constantly sourcing. Right. You eat something, you drink something. I mean, every magazine we have, there's an unlimited amount of stories with the people who live here. Right. And so the only way to know that is to be out and connecting and knowing what's going on and having an ear to the ground. And I just love it. Yes. And then as far as what it was like, it was awesome. And it was really energizing for me. I know not everybody would find it energizing. I loved everything about it. I was telling your team earlier, I would love to just be a professional spokesperson, and chamber chairmanship is very much spokesperson. It is. You're for 1 year, you're the spokesperson. Yes. You don't have any great power, it's just, and luckily I believe in what the chamber does, and I believe in this place, and so it was very natural for me. It was a lot of time, and I don't think I realized it until now this year. Right. I'm like, oh my gosh, nobody's calling, nobody's asking for this or that or meetings. Yeah, I love it. And I have been thoroughly enjoying being on this side of it, even though I loved every second of it, and I was sad when it was winding down. Now that I feel this margin back in my life, this is good. Yeah, it's a little bit better. Well, thanks for doing it, because it does make a big difference in our community. I love what you said about the future, because really that's what the chamber spends a lot of time focusing on, is preparing for the future of our community, our region. What do we need to be thinking about? Educational issues and social issues and all the things. Well, thanks for joining the board again. Yeah, absolutely. Second run at it. Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to spending some time in it over the next few years, so it's going to be great. Awesome. Well, Logan, I can't thank you enough for spending some time with us today. I am super grateful for everything that you do for our community and sharing the wisdom that you have with our listeners, because I know that they're going to get some gold out of that. So I want to say a big cheers to you. Cheers! And congratulations for owning your journey. Thank you. Thank you.